This Pondercast is brought to you by you. We are powered by listeners through Patreon. Please consider a monthly donation at patreon.com/Pondercast. Let's grow this together. Hi, I'm Laurie Brown. Let's Pondercast. So I'm up at a cabin near Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario, looking at the lake, but I'm thinking about what I did last week. I got together with about 500 other Torontonians to sing an Aretha Franklin song with Choir. And for 8 years now, you've been able to get together once a week with a bunch of people to sing a pop song in 3-part harmony and have a beer together. It's a ton of fun. It just feels so good to sing together. And when David Bowie died, and Prince, and Gord Downie, or most recently Aretha Franklin, the numbers swell for Choir. For the artists that mean a lot to us, the need to do something when that artist dies, it kind of feels imperative. And getting together and singing with like-minded, grieving people really helps. It becomes a celebratory happening. The tickets, which were pay what you can, they were gone in 2 minutes. And 500 lucky people lined up around the Great Hall in Toronto. And once we packed the place, Nobu Edelman and David Goldman took the stage. Choir is a very unique and rewarding experience. And this Pondercast, You Make Me Feel, is an interview with Nobu and David and the spontaneous musical energy that we all create together. I'm here with David Goldman and Nobu Edelman, together known as
Dabu.
That's right.
That's it.
Choir.
And you guys started this amazing thing called Choir. And before we talk about what happened last night at the Aretha Franklin night, how do you explain to people what it is that you do?
We don't. We just do it, which is sometimes problematic because people don't really get what exactly it is that we're doing. But I think the more we're out there, the more people kind of understand what it is. It's really just simply Nobu and I on stage, interacting with an audience and getting them to sing a song and teaching them to sing together in harmony and to create something live and exciting and within the span of a couple of hours. That's all it is, just singing a song, coming in the room, singing a song, recording it, and leaving, and just having that moment, and that's it. But it's part of the build-up to the moment that really makes it what it is,
I mean, everything that happens in that room is what makes Choir so fun and exciting, and for some people life-changing. For us, definitely life-changing. But it's and you put all these moments together, and you just have this beautiful full life. And I think that it's the nuances of what happens at every Choir session that has built up where we are to where we are now.
Going ahead to what happened last night with Aretha, the tickets were free, but you had to get online and reserve yourself a ticket. And about 500 seats sold out within, I think, 2 minutes. I got 2 and I went back to get 2 more and they were gone at 7:02. We all line up, we all get in. And it is the most amazing thing for all of us who are used to being audience members. We're used to being passive. We're used to sitting there and having all the action happen on stage. And all of a sudden, it changes the whole dynamic. There's no such thing as a passive audience at a choir situation. And you become the art and you become creative. And you're right about talking about what happens in that room. What does that tell you about people's need to make music?
I mean, I think music brings people together, but I think it's interesting when, as you say, like the audience is not even really an audience anymore, because an audience, I guess, implies that they are passive and they're listening to something or taking something in. Whereas at Choir there actually is no audience. Certainly by the end of the night, it's just, we say it's like a big hang. But I think I think there's just something really binding about, rhythm and melody and the things that make music what it is. And it is a universal language. Not that everyone loves every kind of music, but when you get people together, it can really bring people from different walks of life together under one idea. So it is a unifying force for sure. I mean, it sounds in some ways like hokey to say that, but it's obviously true that people come together around songs, around artists, around songs that matter to them. It connects people to times in their life that are either happy or sad, or it sort of allows people to sort of reflect and share a moment that matters to them for whatever reason, but you realize, I'm not alone. You also love this song? Why? Or we all know why we love it, or we don't know why. That's okay. It's just people coming together. I think for us, it's clear that based on the fact that we've been doing this for almost 8 years and how much has changed people's lives, that music obviously matters more than I certainly ever thought it did. And I'm a singer and a musician and stuff, so...
But I would extend it past just what we define as music. I think that we, as just our makeup, we are musical. Just to being alive is just to be musical on some level. I remember being a kid and listening to the vacuum cleaner, and then just humming along to the vacuum cleaner and feeling the vibrations of it and hearing the sounds, and then the steps, creaky floors and the steps and the rhythm. Like, I feel like we are guided by rhythm on every aspect of our lives. We have to go outside where it's in a city context, super loud, but if you start to break down all the different noises, and sometimes they are in coordination with each other. So I feel like we are all rhythmic on some level. It's just a matter of how much we zone in on it. And I feel like at Choir, we're able to offer some kind of organizing structure for all those impulses, and definitely around songs, obviously. But it's also tied to many years ago on YouTube, the big thing was DIY instructional videos, right? So it was sort of like handing the tools to people to learn how to do everything from, I learned how to do a half Windsor knot online, and now you naturally go to YouTube to figure out how to do things, see if you could figure it out. And in some ways, we took it off of the internet and we brought it to a live environment, because I think we also need to be shoulder to shoulder with people. I think that technology is making our lives a lot easier, but at the same time, it is obviously can keep people away from each other. And we offer an in-person experience to stand with others and to sing with others, and that is immensely powerful. And I think that people forget that, because we're supposed to be, robots.
Also, that connection. Like, I love sort of talking on the phone, which in this day and age is sort of an archaic idea. Like, if you call somebody, they either won't answer, and they wonder why. Like, why is this person calling me?
Couldn't you just text me?
It's
with
suspicious.
That?
And I'm so. I mean, I feel like I try to be very expressive and whatever, and I want to hear how someone else is feeling, and I need that connection. And I think a lot of people need that, whether they're extroverts or introverts. I think they need that, at least a little bit of human connection sometimes. And you can be so removed from people just because of the technology. We don't really need anybody in our lives. You could really live alone. You don't rely on the milkman coming to your door, or you can get everything you want on Amazon. You don't need to ever interact with anybody, But it's great sometimes, but it's so important to step outside that and just have some real connections with people.
You're the key to my peace of mind. So this may be a moment, this might be a moment when you're in a red shirt and you're like, well, maybe this is too high for me and I should go to the lows. Maybe. You never know, sir. You never know.
Listening to people singing around me, the few times I have been to choir, there are not great singers there. It's not like they're as the person who's trying to teach them the three parts, you would know that. And they're not great singers.
No.
I remember talking to one guy who said, I haven't sung since public school choir, but I'm here tonight because Prince has died and I wanted to do something. Right. So in some ways, you're filling a musical need for all of us whose musical education has simply been listening to the radio and singing along.
I just think people are more creative than they give themselves credit for, and I think that socialization has told people that they're not and created barriers to it, and I think that's ridiculous. Of course, there are going to be better singers and worse singers, that kind of thing, but you can still, in a choir context, contribute your voice. You just don't have to sing at the top of your lungs, you know? And when you sing with a bunch of other people, naturally, it sort of bends the minor notes a little bit more major, you know? It gets things more on key.
Yeah, not that we necessarily love that.
I mean, it's...
I mean, there's nothing... It would be great to be in a room with 5,000 people who are all great singers. But there definitely is something to the fact that these voices are not as unified or as rehearsed. You know, it's important to rehearse to some degree, so you make it sound like, you know, we're all in this together and we've done enough, we've put in a bit of effort, but, you know, there's something that happens when you're so trained, you lose a bit of like the humanness of it. It becomes something, oh, I could never do that. And that's part of that we realize that's part of what choir is like that. It's like that space in between, like we say, it blends audience and performer, and it blurs the lines between what it is to be on stage and in the audience. And part of that is finding that middle ground where you know, you're not watching something that you could never do.
When my soul was in the lost and found, you came along to claim it. I didn't know just what was wrong with me. Till your kiss helped me name it.
If you have to drill down on those magic moments, the moment when the song happens that you get goosebumps and everybody feels it. Is it a musical moment or is it a moment where everyone's just feeling like we're together?
I think it's both. I think it's when we have these moments all the time when the harmonies come together, like a three-part harmony on a chorus comes together, and people realize that those individual parts have just contributed to this larger feeling that now we can share all together in the room. That is something that your body responds to, your brain body, that just lifts you up. And everyone has that realization at the same time. That's sort of like the way that we used to all watch television shows on the same night, you know, and then we'd all have that common experience. That's what happens in the room, you know, and it happens many times over the night.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you have so many... That's a good point. Like, that used to be such a common thing that people would be experiencing things at the same time.
And you jump on the phone and be like, did you see
that?
You know,
or you're watching
now
on the phone with someone. Live sports is the
and,
only thing really
and,
that is
and
like...
news.
But news is depressing. But I mean, like, it's not like, yes, you could watch about how there was another bombing. But I mean, like, the truth is, it's like... Sports is like the last sort of bastion of like people experiencing something in different places together and really...
And award shows.
Cheering at the same time, you know, whereas like that's kind of what this is. It's kind of a way for people to get together and experiencing something in real time at the same time, and then, you know, create a bit of a new memory.
And it instantly connects you to somebody on the other side of the room because you both were doing it, you know, and then so together. And so it definitely, those moments unify the group and make it easier for people to talk to each other because they now have a common accomplishment to talk about, you know, on some level. And then who knows where it goes from there.
At the end of the evenings, there's so much happiness, joy, energy built up in the audience. Tell me the first time it spilled out into the street and you took it out to do a public performance afterwards.
Oh. Well, we used to do that a bar called No One Writes to the Colonel, where we did our Tuesday nights for 3 years or so, and we used to take people out. We would say, let's go outside. It was hot in there. We'd say, let's go out and sing in the street, and people were always excited by that. So and at Clinton's, where we do choir now, at Bloor and Clinton for the last, the next 3 years have been there. And the Monarch Tavern, we would take people outside and sing in the street. Once in a while, we would sort of surprise them and say, "Who wants to sing this outside?" When it felt really good, and it felt like we just need to take this out to the streets, we would do it, and people always loved it. So when we were doing the Prince night at Massey Hall, I looked at Noble on stage. I sort of like off mic, and I said, like, we should invite them outside. We should see if they want to sing on the street. And he was like, yeah, we should do that. And I was like, I'm serious. Like, why don't we just do that? He's like, I guess we could. I'm like, we're here. Everyone's going to leave. We're all going outside anyway. So then we said it on mic, and people just were so excited. The idea of 2,000 people just ascending on Yonge Street, so we said, meet us down at Yonge and Dundas Square in 10 minutes. And then we,
What's so nice
That
about
was
that?
the best.
What's so nice about that moment is that, I mean, obviously Massey Hall looms so large. It's like such a venue that means so much. But we ran that night in tribute to Prince as a regular choir night. As if we were on stage at Clinton's or any of other sort of the smaller venues. But we ran it like that, and it worked. And people responded in the same way, which was of excitement and joy, like what you're talking about. And so when David suggested that to me, that we go outside, it was like, okay, well,
this is what we'd be doing.
This is what we do.
If we were at Clinton's doing the Prince night and there were 250 people there,
we would have gone outside.
We would have gone outside.
Exactly. So it's nice that we didn't like hold back on just going with what was natural, And I think that that's a guiding principle for both David and I. Is if it feels natural, then we should do it.
It totally did. And that built up energy you've got, that you can get people outside and then you do a thing in public. There is so much goodwill and energy in those moments. That you could tell us to do anything. You could tell us to build a barn. You could tell us to clean up all the garbage along Queen Street from here to University. You could...
I need a kitchen reno.
You know what? You could totally do it.
Everyone go clean my bathroom.
You guys have created a tribe. You've created a tribe of people of really good feeling and good energy. And honestly, you could do things with this energy. At the end of the night, people still want to do things.
But that's why we started our Choir Foundation, and we from the very beginning of choir, we modeled this whole group based on our personalities and the collective personality of the people who were there from the beginning, and it's just grown from there. And charity is something, giving back is something that's embedded in us as individuals, and now it's resulted in this foundation, and so we're constantly thinking of ways to give back and to use the power of the collective force of choir, and we're learning how to refine it.
You make me feel. You make me feel. You make me feel like a natural woman.
Early on, when we were in the first year of choir, it became sort of a small joke that it was almost like a mini Craigslist, because if somebody needed furniture, they would post on the group, and then suddenly they would have a couch, or they would have this or that. It from objects to, if somebody was feeling lonely and it's like, I'm going to a movie, does anybody want to come out? That sort of thing would happen often. We've got two very old friends who came separately to choir after getting divorced, and now they're married, separately, and they found each other. So I feel like there's like thousands and thousands of connections that have happened, and people who have teamed up in many different ways, to fill some kind of void in their lives, and I think it's really powerful. That's a really like an undercurrent of choir that is beautiful.
We did it, and then it's like just brought me back into music in a way that I didn't think was possible. It's utilizing so many of the skills that I accumulated over the years, also managing a restaurant and just interacting with people and singing and stuff. But it's really turned my musical life upside down in a way that I couldn't possibly imagine. And it's been so fun. Like it's made music really fun for me, where it wasn't really fun before. It was more of like it was more like a personal project that could be fun at times, but also was really exhausting emotionally. Whereas now I also have a great partner, but also it's just the project is just so uplifting that even in our hardest moments, we look at each other and we think like we got a pretty good gig here. Like this is we've
When I
stumbled on
think
something.
of that energy that's coming up towards you on
Right.
that stage, that must just fuel you like crazy.
When I met David, he, obviously very talented musician and very funny and also very curmudgeonly, just well-rounded kind of old man yelling on porch sort of thing in a humorous way. But I just from my perspective, he is now such a driver of a lot of things that happen in choir. And when I first met him, I don't think he saw the possibilities as much, and he was more in a shell. He was more siloed, and I've watched him over the course of 8 years become like overflowing. I mean, he always had ideas, but he now has in his wheelhouse, I guess, is like the knowledge that he can make all these things happen. So it's really exciting because back then I would have to convince him to do things because he didn't realize that it was that easy. We would say yes and we would do it, right? He was more in his head, and he's still in his head, but I love it because now he's out making all these things happen. It's great.
It's pretty amazing. You've created a very special musical thing where there's an absolute equal balance between what's going on out there and what's going on stage. So I think everybody wins.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.